You signed in your child under a fake name? The officer growled. That is her name. She's my daughter, the woman said, gripping the folder. Don't lie to me. Where did you take this kid from? Before she could respond, the cuffs were already around her wrists, in front of stunned teachers, her 7-year-old daughter screaming for her mother. No crime. No evidence. Just one assumption. A dark-skinned woman couldn't be the legal guardian of a light-skinned child. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. The sign-in line at Grove Point Elementary was moving slow that morning. Parents shuffled forward with coffee cups and tired eyes. At the end of the hallway stood Janelle Brooks, 34, nursing assistant, single mother, holding her daughter's backpack in one hand and a folder of custody papers in the other. Her daughter, Summer, stood beside her. 7 years old, light brown curls, green eyes, pink hoodie. She looked nothing like Janelle, and that was the problem. A white woman at the front desk glanced up as they approached. She looked at Janelle, then at Summer, then back again. This is your daughter? Janelle nodded, smiling softly. Yes, I'm here to register her. She just transferred. The woman blinked, then frowned. Can I see ID? Janelle handed over her license and the school packet, including court-issued guardianship papers. The clerk skimmed them quickly, barely reading. I'm going to need to verify this. She stood up, took the folder, and walked toward a side office. Janelle waited, brushing her hand over Summer's head. Everything okay, Mama? Summer whispered. It's just paperwork, baby. We'll be out soon. But when the clerk returned, she wasn't alone. A school resource officer followed close behind, hand resting on his belt. Ma'am, can I speak with you privately? About what? I gave you all the documents. Step this way, please. In a small conference room, the officer closed the door behind them. Your daughter's name is Summer, correct? Yes. Summer Ellis Brooks. He opened the folder. According to our system, that name was linked to a different address 2 months ago. You listed yours as primary guardian. Because I am. Her biological mother abandoned her. I have full custody. It's all there. And what's your relation? I'm her aunt. My sister's daughter. It's all legal. He stared at her, face blank. And you expect me to believe she is related to you? Silence. Janelle's chest tightened. Are you accusing me of something? The officer didn't answer. He reached for his radio. I'm going to need unit support at Grove Point Elementary. Possible custodial interference. Suspected abduction. Janelle stood up fast. What are you doing? She's my niece. This is... Sit down, ma'am. He grabbed her arm, yanked her wrist behind her back. The metal cuff snapped shut. Summer began crying through the glass. Mama, Mama. The teachers nearby just watched. Silent. Some recorded. No one moved. Janelle was walked out in cuffs. She had committed no crime. Only looked wrong, standing next to her own family. Janelle sat in a cold holding cell for 3 hours before anyone spoke to her. No phone call. No lawyer. No explanation. At 11:46 a.m., a woman in a gray pantsuit walked in, clipboard, badge, forced smile. Ms. Brooks, I'm Agent Karen Dalton. I'm with Child Protective Services. Janelle stood, arms crossed. Where's my niece? She's safe. Temporarily placed under observation until the situation is clarified. Clarified? I gave them legal documents. You people tore me out of a school like I was a kidnapper. Dalton kept smiling, flipping through papers. We received a report of potential custodial deception. The officer who detained you claimed there was inconsistency between the child's appearance and guardian's profile. Janelle blinked. I didn't realize skin tone was a legal disqualifier. Dalton looked up, unamused. This isn't about race, Ms. Brooks. It's about protocol. Protocol doesn't put handcuffs on an aunt signing school papers. Dalton's voice sharpened. You'll have a chance to explain. A preliminary custody review is being scheduled for tomorrow morning. Until then, Summer remains in state care. Janelle felt the air drain from her lungs. She's never spent a night away from me. Never. Dalton didn't flinch. The system moves fast when minors are involved. Later that evening, Janelle was released. No apology. No charges. Just a white sheet of paper with 2 lines. Temporary detainment. No further action. Custody review scheduled. 8 a.m. Family Court Division. At home, her hands shook opening the fridge. Every drawing on the door, every pink hairband left on the counter, it all felt violated. Summer was in foster intake. And Janelle had no rights left, at least not until that courtroom said otherwise. The next morning, the hearing room was cramped and windowless. Janelle stood alone at the front. No lawyer, no advocate, just her. Across the aisle, a state attorney reviewed a thin case file. The judge, white, male, mid-50s, looked over his glasses. Ms. Brooks, we have a report stating you attempted to register a minor without verified parental authority. That's not true. I submitted guardianship papers. I've had legal custody for 8 months. And yet no state agency was able to immediately verify that documentation. Janelle's voice cracked. Because no one tried. They saw my face and decided I didn't belong next to her. The room went silent. The state attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, we request a temporary continuation of state custody pending formal verification. Janelle whispered. I'm her family. I'm her only family. The judge didn't look up. Continuation granted. Next review in 5 days. The gavel dropped, and Janelle's world cracked open. The first thing Janelle did after the hearing was go straight to the county clerk's office. She needed proof of hard, stamped, official. By 10:30 a.m., she had it. A signed guardianship order. A notarized transfer of custody. Medical authorization. School release forms. All dated. All valid. All already submitted and ignored. She placed the entire packet in a red folder, highlighted key sections, and made 5 copies. Then she walked into Child Protective Services. The receptionist barely looked up. Do you have an appointment? I have proof. The woman sighed. Name? Summer Ellis Brooks. I'm her legal guardian. I was arrested yesterday for trying to register her for school. A few people looked up from their desks. The receptionist made a call. 5 minutes later, Agent Dalton walked out, arms crossed. Ms. Brooks, I want Summer released into my custody immediately. I have every document, and I want it recorded that your department failed to verify existing legal orders. Dalton's eyes narrowed. This isn't how these things work. I'm done asking nicely. Dalton led her into a private room. Janelle laid out each document like evidence in a trial. This is the original custody ruling, signed by Judge Merriweather. This is the school authorization form, filed with the district. This is Summer's medical chart. I signed every page. Dalton flipped through them slowly. Her face remained neutral, but her voice lost the edge. Why wasn't this on file with CPS? It was. You didn't check. Dalton paused, then said, I'll submit this to legal. It might take 48 hours to eat. No, today. Or I go to the media. You think I won't? My niece is sleeping in a stranger's house right now because someone thought my skin didn't match hers. Dalton blinked. For the first time, something like doubt cracked through her face. I'll escalate it. Janelle stood. You do that. By the time she got home, her phone buzzed with a blocked number. Ms. Brooks? This is Family Placement Unit. We've received an emergency update on Summer's file. Custody hearing is being expedited to tomorrow. Please arrive at 9 a.m. Janelle's hands shook. The system had moved fast, finally, but not because it wanted to. Because it had no choice. Still, she didn't sleep that night. She kept imagining Summer, small and scared, surrounded by strangers. What had they told her? What lies had they filled her with? By sunrise, Janelle was dressed, folder in hand. If they wanted to fight, she would bring war. The next morning, the courtroom felt colder. This time, there was a CPS lawyer seated at the state's table, young, sharp suit, white. He didn't look at Janelle when she entered. The judge was different, too, a woman in her 40s, eyes unreadable. Janelle stood alone. The bailiff announced the case. The state's lawyer rose immediately. Your Honor, while the respondent has submitted documents asserting legal guardianship, the department has concerns regarding the circumstances of care. The judge tilted her head. Define concerns. He opened a thin file. The child in question, Summer Brooks, was found enrolled at a prior address under a different caregiver's name. The transition appears abrupt. There are inconsistencies in school registration, medical access, and housing stability. Janelle stepped forward. None of that is true. I moved her to my home legally after her mother surrendered custody. The other caregiver was a temporary foster home while the courts processed paperwork. I have every record. She held up the red folder. The lawyer didn't flinch. We don't dispute that the documents exist. We question whether this environment serves the child's long-term interest. Janelle's voice trembled. What part of my environment? My job? My apartment? Or my skin? The courtroom went silent. The judge didn't blink. Ms. Brooks, please keep your tone civil. Janelle held her ground. My niece is being kept from me because someone didn't like how we looked standing next to each other. There's no abuse. No neglect. No drugs. No risk factors. Just perception. The CPS attorney interjected. Your Honor, we request a psychological evaluation to ensure proper attachment and verify caregiver suitability. We believe a neutral third party should assess the child's welfare before reinstatement. The judge nodded slowly. Motion granted. Return hearing set in 72 hours. Child remains in state placement until further notice. Gavel down. Just like that, it was extended again. Outside, Janelle leaned against the wall, breathing shallow, the folder pressed to her chest like armor. That night, she finally allowed herself to cry. Not for herself. For Summer, for what this was doing to her, being bounced like a case file instead of held like a child. The next day, a social worker came to observe Janelle's apartment. She arrived early. Young, clipboard, polite. Janelle gave her the tour. Clean rooms. Stocked fridge. A bedroom with Summer's name on the wall. The woman took notes. Then, as she stepped out, she paused. I shouldn't say this, but off the record, you're doing everything right. It's just, sometimes the system doesn't respond well when a child looks one way and the parent doesn't. Janelle's breath caught. The worker looked away. I'm sorry. She left, and Janelle stood frozen at the door. It had never been about paperwork. It had always been about appearances. Thursday, 6:12 a.m. Janelle sat at her kitchen table, legal pad open, laptop glowing. Not just a mother now. Not just a guardian. She was preparing for court like a prosecutor. They underestimated her, but they hadn't read her file close enough. Before she became a nursing assistant, Janelle had spent 2 years in pre-law. She dropped out after her sister's overdose to raise Summer. But the books never left her. Neither did the discipline. And now, she wasn't going to fight this like a victim. She was going to fight like someone who knew how to win. She compiled case law, Davis versus Morgan, TLV, state, and re-CG, all involving black guardians misidentified due to racial assumptions. All ruled in favor of the caregiver once facts were reviewed. She printed excerpts, highlighted precedents, drafted a motion to dismiss the psychological review based on discriminatory bias. At 9:03 a.m., she walked into the courthouse again, folder thicker now, posture straighter. In the waiting room, the CPS attorney gave her a smirk. Representing yourself again? She smiled back. Not representing. Filing. He blinked. Janelle handed the clerk a 12-page petition. Motion to dismiss based on established custodial law and evidence of racial bias in proceedings. The clerk read the header, eyebrows rising. Did an attorney draft this for you? No. I did. He stamped it. By noon, a notice arrived. Emergency hearing scheduled. Friday, 11 a.m. All parties required. CPS wasn't prepared for that. That night, Janelle received a call from a blocked number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Brooks? Who is this? I'm a former family court clerk. I saw your filing. I just want to say, what they're doing isn't new. It's just rarely challenged. Janelle said nothing. Don't stop. The only way this system changes is when people like you make noise inside it. Click. No name. No trace. But it was the first real crack in the wall. At 10:44 p.m., Janelle tucked Summer's favorite blanket into a bag. Not because she needed it, but because she believed. She believed Friday might be the day she brought her home. She sat down and reread her petition one more time. No lawyer. No allies. Just pages, proof, and power they didn't expect her to have. And tomorrow, she was going to use every word of it. Friday, 10:59 a.m. The courtroom felt different. Not because the chairs had changed, but because Janelle had. She wasn't afraid anymore. The CPS attorney sat on the left, flipping pages. Same suit, same look of smug control. Across from him, Janelle stood alone, her folder open like a weapon. The judge entered. Same woman from the earlier hearing. We're here today under expedited review, prompted by the respondent's emergency filing. Ms. Brooks, you may begin. Janelle stepped forward. Your Honor, the state's case is built on a false premise that appearance alone can override legal custody. She placed 3 documents on the evidence table. First, my notarized custody order. Second, school registration forms accepted by the district. Third, medical authorization used without issue for 8 months. She didn't stop. But more importantly, I submit case precedent in re-CG, where the court found that racial assumptions regarding parent-child resemblance do not justify state interference. I also cite Davis versus Morgan, which explicitly names visual bias as insufficient grounds for removal. The judge raised an eyebrow. The CPS lawyer stood. Your Honor, this seems rehearsed. She's not licensed to practice law. I don't need a license to tell the truth. Janelle's voice cut through the room. I may not be a lawyer, but I understand the law. I understand the Constitution. I understand that my niece was taken from me because of how we look together and nothing else. She turned to face the judge directly. This system doesn't need more silence. It needs someone to say, this child wasn't in danger. She was just darker than expected. The lawyer tried to speak again. Objection, Your Honor. But the judge raised a hand. Overruled. Let her finish. Janelle exhaled. Summer Ellis Brooks is my niece. My legal, protected, and deeply loved family. I want her back. And I want this court to recognize that no law was broken, only trust. Silence. The judge nodded slowly. I've reviewed your petition. I've also reviewed the state's case file. I see no evidence of neglect. No unsafe environment. Only a failure to process existing documentation. She looked at the CPS attorney. Do you have anything new to present? He hesitated. No, Your Honor. The judge's tone sharpened. Then I see no reason to continue this separation. She turned back to Janelle. Custody is reinstated. Effective immediately. Janelle's hands shook. The judge added, and Ms. Brooks, if you ever consider going back to law school, I'd recommend you apply. The gavel struck once, and the courtroom cracked open, not with noise, but with justice. Monday, 8:03 a.m. Janelle had just finished packing Summer's lunch when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Ms. Brooks? This is Deputy Hannah from the Internal Review Division. Janelle froze. Internal of what? Child Protective Services. Silence. We've opened an inquiry into how your custody documents were handled and mishandled by CPS agents and school security. Janelle sat down slowly. Why now? Your court transcript was submitted anonymously to our oversight board, with annotations and citations. Janelle didn't reply. I'd like to ask you some questions, if you're willing. Off the record. Janelle nodded. I'm listening. For the next 20 minutes, she answered everything. How the arrest unfolded, what was said, what was ignored. She mentioned the smirk from the CPS attorney, the quiet apology from the social worker, the silence of the school. When the call ended, Janelle stared out the window for a long time. Summer played quietly in the living room, arranging crayons in color order, her world already returning to normal. But outside that window, the real world was starting to shift. By Tuesday, the story was circulating, not in headlines, but in inboxes. A copy of Janelle's motion and the court's ruling had been forwarded through a network of public defenders, child advocates, and education attorneys. It started small, but the spark had landed. On Wednesday, Grove Point Elementary received a formal complaint. An internal email leaked within hours. All front desk and administrative staff are required to attend racial sensitivity training pending further notice. By Thursday, Agent Karen Dalton was placed on administrative leave. And on Friday, the same judge who reinstated Janelle's custody issued a memo to CPS. Any future removals based solely on visual misalignment between guardian and child will trigger an automatic judicial review prior to placement. Janelle didn't dance, didn't celebrate. She cooked dinner, braided Summer's hair, folded clean laundry, because her goal had never been punishment. It was restoration. That night, she received another call, this one from the social worker who'd whispered the truth days earlier. You changed something, the voice said. I just did what any parent would do. No, the woman replied softly. Most parents wouldn't know how. And the line went quiet. Janelle stared at the ceiling that night, one hand on Summer's back as she slept beside her. The system hadn't apologized, but it had been forced to look in the mirror. And that was something. It had been 4 days since Janelle got Summer back. 4 days of normalcy, at least on the surface. But normal wasn't what it used to be. Every time Janelle walked Summer to school, she caught herself scanning the street. Every unfamiliar car parked too long made her pulse skip. Every time a school staffer greeted them with too much cheer, she wondered, were they trying to cover guilt, or just afraid? Summer didn't say much. She slept with the lights on now. Once, Janelle found her whispering to her stuffed animals. Don't let them take me again. Janelle sat on the bed beside her and held her until she slept. No words, just warmth. That's all she had left to offer in that moment. The trauma wasn't over. It had just been transferred from the courtroom into the quiet. That weekend, a letter arrived. No envelope. Just folded paper slid under their front door. You embarrassed good people. You should have just complied. Don't ruin your niece's future because of your mouth. No name. No contact. Janelle folded the note carefully, placed it in a new folder labeled Threats. She didn't cry. She scanned it, saved it, and emailed it to the Oversight Division. Then she returned to folding laundry, because fear couldn't be allowed to win. On Sunday, they went to the park. It was the first real sunshine they'd seen in weeks. Summer climbed the slide again and again, laughing a little louder each time. Janelle watched her closely, not for danger, but for healing. At one point, a woman approached the bench. White, mid-30s. Hesitant. Janelle tensed. Are you Summer's mom? I'm her aunt, Janelle replied, voice calm. The woman nodded. I just wanted to say. I was there that morning. At the school. I didn't do anything. I should have. Janelle said nothing. I'm sorry. She left without waiting for forgiveness. Janelle stared at the empty path for a long time. The next morning, she did something she hadn't done in months. She reopened her old email account, the one from her brief time in law school. She typed one line in the to field. Admissions at South Texas College of Law.edu. And hit send. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she finally remembered who she used to be before the system told her she was nothing. And now, she wasn't just raising a child. She was preparing to challenge every courtroom that tried to take her away. Monday morning, 8:32 a.m. The email reply came faster than expected. Your reapplication has been conditionally approved. Welcome back, Ms. Brooks. Janelle stared at the screen for a full minute before blinking. Then she exhaled. She wasn't going back in spite of everything. She was going back because of everything. By Wednesday, she was sitting in a free legal workshop hosted by a grassroots advocacy group in Houston. She didn't speak, not at first. Just listened. Watched. A mother stood up, shaking. They took my son because I missed a form. No lawyer. No hearing. I just came home, and he was gone. Another woman added. They asked me why my child didn't look like me. Like I had to explain my own family. The story spilled. One by one. Unheard pain. Buried injustice. Echoes of her own fight multiplied. When the facilitator asked if anyone had knowledge of custody law, Janelle hesitated. Then raised her hand. I'm not licensed, but I've read the rules. And I've lived them. People turned. Eyes searching. What do we do when no one listens? Janelle looked around the room. We speak anyway. In writing. In court. In motion after motion. We document. She paused. And if we don't know how? We teach each other. After the session, a woman approached her quietly. My hearing's next week. I don't even know what to bring. Janelle opened her bag. I'll show you. Step by step. You won't walk in there blind. By the end of the week, she had 4 families texting her for help. Not advice. Just help. Support. Understanding. Not every case ended well. One was delayed. Another denied. But for one woman, she walked into court with a file Janelle helped her build. And walked out with her daughter in her arms. Later that day, she sent a voice message. I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't know people like you existed. Janelle sat alone in her car, parked outside Summer School, listening to that message. The same school where it all began, where Summer was almost erased. Now she was back, not just as a guardian, but as a guide, because the system that tried to break her had accidentally created a weapon it couldn't silence. Friday, for 17 p.m., Summer's backpack thudded against the hallway wall as she burst through the door, sneakers half untied. I got a gold star. 2 of them. Janelle smiled from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. You earned all of them. Summer ran in for a hug. It was tight, fierce, ordinary. And that was the victory. That weekend, they finally visited the aquarium, the trip that had been canceled weeks ago after the arrest. Janelle held Summer's hand as they stared up at jellyfish dancing through water. You know what I thought, when they took you? Summer asked quietly. Janelle tensed. What, baby? I thought, maybe they forgot who you were. Janelle's throat tightened. No, they just didn't want to see. Summer nodded, as if that explained everything. Maybe it did. Monday came, and Janelle attended her first formal class in 5 years. It was remote, late at night, after Summer was asleep. She logged in with headphones in silence. But every word from the professor, every case discussed, every clause analyzed, it wasn't theory anymore. It was life. Her life. Her niece's life. 2 weeks later, she received a plain envelope. No logo. No court seal. Inside, a card. Handwritten. Your motion saved my grandson. They were going to place him out of state. You stopped them. D. Willis, Franklin County. She kept that card in her wallet. Not because it proved anything, but because it reminded her one fight mattered. She didn't become famous. Didn't sue anyone. Didn't burn the system to the ground. She raised her niece. She rebuilt her name. She helped the next woman walk into court with her head high, with proof in her hands and fear behind her. And every time Summer reached for her hand in public, no one looked twice anymore. No one asked who she was. They didn't need to, because Janelle Brooks had made sure her place was undeniable. Not with noise, but with truth. One filing at a time. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.